Radhe Radhe. Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janavallabhaya Swami. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Shri Krishnaarpanamastu Gurubhyo Namaha. Did we stop at the coming of the rishis to Samanta Panchaka? Can make. Avadhuta Gita, Avadhuta Gita. You became a pigeon. Okay. Avadhuta, Dattatreya is saying very difficult things. A really detached person will not go in search of the pleasures of the senses. Will not go in search of the pleasures of the senses. He should be beautiful. Today it rained. He should be indifferent to everything, rain or sunshine. Like the python which eats what comes his way, whether it is tasty or not, whether it is small or big, the python never goes out of its way to get food for itself, nor does it make any special attempt to satisfy its hunger. This was the lesson I learned from the python. Even so, man should be satisfied with what he gets and should never go out in pursuit of worldly things. The python does not grieve if it does not get food daily, but waits with patience. Even starving for days together without thinking that it's a misfortune. Man should also have the fortitude to put up with the fact that he will be denied many of the so-called good things of life. The really wise one should learn to control his desires, the senses, to such an extent they should even forget that they exist. Though his senses are alert, though his mind is active, though the body has strength, still man should so school them that they should be kept sleeping as far as he is concerned. Not only sleeping, but inert. He should have but one desire, moksha. And this should be the aim. A wise man should appear like the ocean. Surface should be clear and lucid. It should be so deep that no one can gauge the depth. Meaning, he should appear as though he is very simple. He should not make any tall claims or short claims. Since he does not behave as others do, the sensible men of the world, he will appear simple to the common man. But his thought should be so deep that no one can guess what they are. No one should be able to cross him in his purpose, since he will be a spiritual giant. Nothing should be able to upset him or cause any disturbance in his mind or his mental makeup. Meaning, the senses and the objects of the senses should be powerless to upset him or cause any kind of disturbance in his mind. When the rainy season fills the mountain torrents with water, they rush down in tumult, but they do not cause any tumult in the sea when they empty themselves into it. And when in summertime the waters flowing into the sea are scanty, the sea does not decrease in level. Even so, when in the grip of the passions, it's natural that passions will grip people. Man should not let it affect him, nor should it be depressed when his desires are frustrated. It is naturally so that the opposite sex have been created as the personifications of the Maya of the Lord. And as such, women tempt. If a man loses his power of reasoning and thinking and falls a victim to her charms, then he would be destroyed even as a moth that, in fact, there are many Urdu couplets about love, but the lover is compared to a moth. There is a Shamma and there is a Parvana. So, the Parvana keeps going, get its wings burned, but still continues. एक जानिब विषम में महफिल. This is the lesson which a moth taught me. The five indriyas, the sense organs, are for seeing, smelling, touching, hearing and tasting. The moth is destroyed as a result of the sight which beguiles it. So does man, since his eyes betray him into foolishness. When one eats, one should take in only the amount which is necessary to keep the body and soul together. And one should eat this slowly, very slowly, and not swallow it in one single mouthful. The honey bee collects honey from the flowers. She does not, however, beggar them of all the honey that they have, nor does he become avaricious. He takes only what he needs, and in the bargain, he is careful not to hurt the flower from which he takes the honey. Even so, a real yogi should accept from the grihastha, the family people, just so much and not more. He should not embarrass the host. Even as a honey bee collects honey from all flowers, small or big, even so should a man cull knowledge from the big and the small. Even knowledge. All the Shastras must be studied and he should take from them what he thinks is the essence of them. In fact, the Avadhuta says that when one goes for bhiksha, one should do what is called a madhukari bhiksha. A madhukari bhiksha means like the bee that goes to different flowers, takes a little and mixes them together. Instead of going to one house and eating up everything, the host also doesn't have food. If one tries to save up too much for tomorrow, he will come to ruin. When he gets food, if he is a sannyasi, he should not keep some of it. He is not saying in the fridge, all the fridges will be out. What happens? I will eat this tonight, this will serve for me tomorrow. This is wrong. His hand should form the, talking about sannyasins, okay? His hands should form the begging bowl, and his stomach should be the vessel wherein the food is stored. If he does not do this, he will come to grief like the honeybee. If one collects wealth and does not give it to others, no harm in collecting wealth. If you keep it, where will you keep it? How long will you keep it? Which place will you keep it? You can't even keep more than 2 lakhs in cash now. The great gods of the Enforcement Directorate and IT will catch you. Don't store. Use. Give in charity. Do something. Man collects wealth and does not give it to others nor enjoys it himself. He is like the honeybee. Since the wealth will be taken by one who is stronger than him. The wise knows how to make others work for him. Like the keeper of a beehive makes the bee work for him and benefits by their work. Lot of bees work for us. A real sannyasin should not touch, even with his toes. What happened to pranams? Real sannyasi. Not poor householder like us. A real sannyasin should not touch even with his toes, even the figure of a woman, even if it is a doll made of wood. If he does so, he will fall like the male elephant, which is lured into the pit by the sight of a female elephant. I am not the sannyasin, so no danger, right? But truly it's true. If you are a celibate all your life, if you are a sannyasin, you have decided I will be a sannyasin, then these are all dangerous things. I have seen things happen. It's very easy to fall, especially when I was a young man wandering as a brahmachari in the Himalayas. One evening I came to a place where there are no places to eat anywhere around. No ashram, no place to go and ask for food. It was getting dark. Then I saw a guy taking firewood and going back from the forest. He saw me. He said, "Oh, so where are you going?" I said, "I'm going the straight way to Badri, but getting lost because it was a little outside, beyond Vashishta Gufa, all that." I said, He said, "What about your food?" I said, "This is what, and I don't know where to stay. Is there some place here?" He said, No, my guru is there, I will take him. You spend the night and go tomorrow. So I said, okay. So I went there. Now this was a Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya sadhu. Lot of namams here. Middle-aged at that time. I was 19, 20. Yeah, 19. He welcomed me very happily and he said, "Food will be served. I know you are hungry. food will be served after the puja is done to Mahavishnu. Come. So they did the puja, complete, elaborate. And then they gave the food, which is prasad. And then after that, he showed me a small kutir and said, you can stay here the night, or if you want, you can stay here for some days and go after a few days. Then he told me, to me it looks like you're going to the upper Himalayas, and I also think you might be contemplating sannyas, take sannyas. Now you have to be very careful. I said, why? He said, you see those steps, there are only 2 steps. If you fall from there, you might bruise your knee or something and you'll get up and go, no problem. Sannyas is a very steep position. So many steps to go. You climb those steps and you go up there. If you fall from there, you probably will be crippled for life. So think well before you do that. So when I later on told Babaji, I don't want to get into any mess, please let me stay here and be like you. I had never discussed this matter with him. He said, you remember what the sadhu told you? Yaad hai ki nahi? I said, yeah, I remember, but you think I'm that weak? He said, oh, you think you are very strong. So now everybody pulls my leg. Even beautiful music and music which has been sung with a desire to please the senses should not be heard by a sannyasi. His mind will be, without his knowledge, bent towards the many temptations that come his way. And like a deer caught in a net, he will be caught in the meshes of delusion. No one, no sannyasin is exempt from this rule. The great rishis, Vibhandaka had a son by name Rishyashringa, whom he had brought up as innocent as the deer he lived with. And yet, even this young innocent one was lured away from the side of his father by music and dancing, which were meant to tempt him. Even Yama tried to tempt Nachiketas with music and dance, elephants and horses and dancers. Nachiket, the little fellow, told Yama, keep your dancers and music for yourself. I don't want. Answer my question. Is there something in me that is immortal? That's all I want to. These things, song and dance, keep it for yourself. Because Nachiketas by the name means one who does not know. Nachiketa. So, anyone who thinks he knows, Chiketa, not Nachiketa, you cannot understand what is being said because already full of things you know, no space. Full of things of the world in the brain. No space. If something is dropped, it will come out. The fish is tempted by the piece of meat placed as a bait. It is easily caught. Man should beware of the sense of taste. To eat less is the first lesson, only for men, okay? Men. Even the wise one can conquer all his other senses. But this one sense, this one this one sense organ, the tongue, is not easy to control. I know people who come to holy places and search where mutton is available. Or go and eat where it is available. Why are you searching for it here, in Banaras? It is a strange quality of this organ called taste and tongue that even when it is starved, it feeds on thoughts of food. Jitendriya, one who has won his senses, Jitendriya. One who has conquered his senses is in reality one whose taste buds have been destroyed by self-control. And what is life worth, right? Even if you are a vegetarian, no aloo bonda, no vada, no idli. The time-honored examples of the tyranny of the senses are the bee, the elephant, the moth and the fish. The sense of smell is responsible for the downfall of the bee, which rushes to the flower which bears the scent. The touch of the female elephant is enough to drag the male elephant into a pit. Sound kills the deer. The lion roars with its mouth on the ground, and the deer, not knowing where it comes from, rushes towards the lion and gets killed. The fish is tempted by the sense of taste. The piece of meat which is the bait is the cause of his undoing. As for the moth, the sense of sight kills it. The sight of the flame is enough to destroy it completely. When just a single sense and its potency is enough to destroy it completely, the one who has succumbed to it, what then can you say about the condition of a person beset as he is on all sides by the objects of the five senses and possessing no strength to resist them? Unless he is alert always, waking or sleeping, one will fall into this pit and get lost. There was once a dancing girl by name Pingala in the country by name Videha. Her profession was such that she had to make her living out of men who paid for her pleasure. One night she dressed herself with great care, as it was very necessary in her profession. As was her custom, with a desire to tempt some man, she went into a house. She stood at the doorstep looking at the passer-by. She wanted money, and so she was set on finding a rich man who would look at her and come into the house to please himself, at the same time make her rich. For a long time she waited. No one came. She would go into the house and come out again, and all the while she searched for someone who would look at her and come in. And so passed half the night. Pingala was very unhappy. Her face was drawn with disappointment, and her eyes filled with tears of anger and frustration. Suddenly, what happened, nobody knows. Suddenly, she became disgusted with herself, and noble thoughts came to her mind. She said, a person who was, nobody knows how it happened. Suddenly, nobody was coming, and she got disgusted with herself. And then she said to herself, a person who has not realized the aloneness of the Atman is fit for nothing. He will never be able to shed the love for possessions and his own things and his own relatives. He will not be able to give up the love he has for his own body. Look at myself. I have never been able to control the course of my mind in the wrong paths. In my desire to enjoy the pleasures of the body with a person, I have abandoned the Lord and become foolish and obstinate. What a fool I am. Inside me is the male who is worth it, the Lord, who will ever be mine and who will grant me moksha. Who am I looking for? And having him inside me, I have been blind and deaf. I have all these days been going in search of mortal men to give me happiness. Mortal men are born and they die. For the sake of this doubtful pleasure which lasts for a moment, when it is accompanied by pain and sadness and misery later, I have abandoned the Lord and submitted this body of mine to endless indignities. Body of mine, it is like a house built of bamboo sticks, tied loosely and covered with a thin skin. This body is made up of water and blood and bones. To gratify this body, I have lost sight of the Lord, who still has the mercy to live inside this disgusting shell. I will not be foolish anymore. I will no longer think on these things of the world. That I should have had my eyes opened is indeed proof that the Lord has not forgotten me, though I have forgotten him till now. The troubles I have had are but the blessings sent by him, or else I would never have come back to the right path so soon. And so, with the sudden realization of the foolishness of years, Pingala abandoned all her desires and went to bed, deciding that she would think on the Lord and no one else. It costs nothing but love and attention. Even like her, think of the Lord. That is the way to gain peace. When one becomes fond of some object in their possession, that very possession will cause unhappiness. Once abandoned, he gains happiness. This lesson I learned from a Kurari. This small being had a piece of meat with it. Birds which were larger and stronger surrounded the Kurari, went on pecking it. It suffered the harassment for a while and held on to the piece of meat. Giluri. But when it became unbearable, it gave up its hold on the piece of meat. At once, that very moment, the birds which were torturing left her in peace. He went off without a care. So says the Avadhuta, I have no possessions. I am not affected by the praise of others or by their censure. I have no family to claim my attention. I am happy in the thought. I am free of bondages which are earthly, which is why I look so happy and tranquil to you. You want to go through the rest of the Avadhuta? What if you all become Avadhutas? I will tell you about the lesson I learned from a young girl. There was a young girl who was left alone in the house while her parents had gone out somewhere. They had been to some place nearby and they were to come back only the next day. When she was alone, unexpected guests arrived in the house and she had to entertain them. There was no rice in the house. The young girl went to the backyard and tried to pound some grains. She was trying to do this in secret, lest her guests should know it. Didn't want the guests to know that she was pounding. But the bangles in her hand slid down to her wrist and threatened to expose her poverty by making music while she plied her pestle. Promptly she broke most of them. With just 2 bangles on each hand, she continued her work. Even these 2 made some noise. So she broke them. The single bangle did not make any noise, so she worked. The lesson I learned from this girl was priceless. Living with many people will cause quarrels and dissatisfaction. Even 2 people are enough to cause conversation which may lead to unpleasantness. So, like the single bangle on the girl's wrist, one should be alone in this world. But the main problem is, most people go to a psychiatrist and say, I feel alone. Alone is considered to be a problem. The Avadhuta says alone is the best. Other way around. We are taught from childhood, gather, 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 then you will be happy. The Upanishad says, te nadyakte na bhunji, let go and rejoice. Opposite. But we won't learn. This is Maya. The only one who can save you from this is the Lord. So hold on. One should be alone in this world. Concentration is essential if one desires to attain oneness with the Paramatman. If man desires to attain the Brahmi state, he must perceive the oneness with the other Atman. And for reaching the Samadhi, concentration is essential. So, what should we do? The breath should be first brought under control. Pranayama. This makes the mind also to be brought under control. The mind will lose its vikshepa, its fickleness, by renouncing the objects of the senses. This comes only by practice. But there is another danger. People will hear this and then start practicing pranayama. The moment they realize that mind is losing its interest in sense objects, they will stop the pranayama and do the other. This is the problem. The mind will lose its vikshepa, its fickleness, by renouncing objects of the senses. This comes only by practice. When it is awake, the mind is never steady but moves from object to object, from thought to thought, from one thing to another. It is ever restless. In the dream state, the mind is rarer, no doubt, but it's still involved in a world of its own, peopled by its own creations. In the deep sleep state, the mind lies dormant, inactive, but only as long as the state lasts. This is the condition of one's mind. But a mind which is by practice brought under control, that on its own it can give up what it is attached to. The vasanas which accompany one from janma to janma because of karma, he is freed from that. Then it can be free of the gunas also easily and become sattvic, which is only one step less than becoming one with the Absolute. This lesson I learned from an archer who, when taking aim, did not know what was happening around him. This archer did not know that a king had passed by. He was so intent on aiming at the target that nothing engaged his attention except the thought that this arrow should hit the target. A snake avoids the company of men, and since it is highly suspicious of their intentions, it's alone and has no dwelling place of its own. It never transgresses any rule and it lives alone with itself. Even so, should a sannyasin live alone, without contact with another human being. He should not have a home of his own because that is only the beginning of other bondages, least of them being taxes. He should try to be as much away from the world of men as possible by living in caves, in hermitages and such like. The dehin, the dweller in the body, when it begins to think of some object intensely to the exclusion of everything else, it becomes the object thought of. And the mind thinks on the Paramatman with intense concentration. It will in course of time become one with Boston, become one with it. The spider taught me the final lesson. I was watching him. He was sitting quietly on a piece of twig. Suddenly, when there was a slight breeze, he spat out some thin filament out of himself. Swinging in the breeze, it reached another twig. And between the two twigs, it travelled to and fro, and in very short time built a web. Few days later, I saw the same spider eating up the threads and undoing the web, and there was nothing left of the beautiful web. Even so, the Brahman, he has no desires, and he is beyond the reach of cause and effect. The end of the kalpa, there is nothing. When the equilibrium of the gunas is upset by time, it is called maya, and the Paramatman manifests itself. At the end of the kalpa, he withdraws into himself. And Avadhuta said, and that inner being which expands and pulls him, in reality it is you. If you remove your false ID, that's your real Aadhaar card. Somebody says, where is your Aadhaar card? I am the Supreme Being. The Avadhuta continued, O King, these are the lessons which I learned from the 24 gurus I mentioned. And I have been practicing what I learned. Yadu saluted him with great reverence and bidding him goodbye. The Avadhuta went away from there. Krishna said, Uddhava, live in the world of men without being attached to anyone or anything. Set your thoughts on me. Act in the world without any desire to please yourself. It is when desire taints actions that they become productive and karma is born. Karma which causes bondage and another birth. Your daily duties should be performed. And if they are done without any purpose other than the good for others, they will not bind you to the world of action. Fill your mind with noble thoughts. The requisites of Ashtanga Yoga should all fill your mind. Not hurting anyone, being truthful, non-stealing, ahimsa, satya, asteya, asanga, non-attachment, lajja, shamefulness at performing wrong action, asanchaya, not collecting wealth and hoarding it, brahmacharya, having the sense under control, mauna, silence, stairya, steadfastness, kshama, forgiving, abhaya, fearlessness. These are the qualities you should cultivate in your mind and none at all order. Spend your thoughts on the nature of the Atman. Remember the example of the fire inside the wood. It's contained in the wood. When it is churned, it comes out and destroys the container. Even so, the Atman inside you, when it's seen as a separate from the body, it will help you lose yourself and become one with it. So, actually, Krishna again repeated in short and brief to Uddhava what the Avadhuta had said in the Avadhuta Gita. Uddhava wanted to know how long he had to live on in the world of men. I do not see how it is going to be possible, Krishna. He sobbed. Krishna spent some time telling him about the art of detachment. It was time for them to part. Uddhava folded his hands and fell at the feet of Krishna. He shed tears profusely. Then in a voice full of emotion, he said, Krishna, the delusion which had been covering me like a cloak of darkness has been lifted. The lamp of knowledge has been kindled and given to me by you. Because of this, the bonds I had till now for my people, my kinsmen, everything is snapped, and I am free. Grant me only this, that I should have this clarity till the end of life. Krishna said, Uddhava, go now to Badrikashrama, where I once performed tapasya. Stay there seeing the Ganga every day, bathing in a pure water. She is pure since the flows from my feet. Live in the forest, eat as little as you can, and go about like an avadhuta without any attachment to anything. You will reach me very soon. Talking about the Badrika ashram of those days. Now everything is there. What is that? Sarovar, that's that. If you want Kerala food, you can go to the Ravalji. Uddhava prostrated once again before Krishna and took leave of him. The parting from Krishna was very hard for him. Even for Krishna, it was a sad moment. Without looking back, Uddhava turned his steps towards the ashrama named Badrika, where Nara and Narayana had once performed tapasya. The end of the Yadu house. Even the Lord, come in a human body, his body and his race completely is wiped out. Impermanency of life. As long as you have a physical body, this can happen. Krishna had asked the Yadavas to assemble in the great hall by name Sudharma. When they were all there, Krishna stood up and said, the evil omens, as I told you, seem to be numerous. It bodes no good for a clan. I do not think it is safe for us to stay here in Dwaraka even for a moment. We will make a pilgrimage. Nearby is the Tirtha or Sangotra. Let the women and the children go to this Tirtha. We will bathe in the waters, purify ourselves, and we, the menfolk, will go further and reach Prabhasa Tirtha. We will bathe in the waters and purifying ourselves. observe fasts and other vratas. We will offer up sacrifices to the gods and give lavishly to the Brahmins and the poor. This way we can avert the calamity which seems to threaten us. As per his wish, women, children and the old went to Sangotra and the others went to Prabhasa. They performed all the many yagas which they had planned to do. They were now sure that they had pacified the gods and that the evil which was prophesied by the skies on earth would be falsified. As for the curse of the rishis, why? That was so long ago that it was forgotten by all. And those who remembered thought of it as a joke, since the iron pestle had been destroyed. They were safe. One night, they were all relaxing after the strenuous vratas they had been observing. All of them partook of the wine by the name of Maireyaka. Note down, please. All of them partook of the wine by name Maireyaka. I have to see who makes them. It was an extremely tasty drink and they drank too much. Not one of them had any control over his senses or his tongue. Funny thing is, when people are drunk, the usual words that you hear is, "I'm perfectly all right." The F and the R may go a little slurred, "I'm perfectly all right." But they began to talk drunkenly. Words added to words became arguments, and arguments grew into quarrels. Within a matter of moments, a great fight rose out of the small arguments, and each of the heroes reached for his bow and arrows, or his gada, or a sword. It was indeed a dreadful scene. They were camping on the shores of the sea. Soon they came out of their tents to fight in the open on the seashore. The fight was terrible, unbelievable and dreadful. Krishna stood silent all the while, watching. He stood apart and he saw the Yadavas killing each other. He still stood there unmoved. He stood watching and there was impatience in his eyes, thinking, when will it be over and when will everybody disappear? Just when the fight began, Balarama knew what was going to happen. Sheer disgust at the sight of the drunken brawl, he retired to a great distance. He met Krishna's eyes and walked away. Krishna knew that Balarama would abandon his body through the practice of yoga. Through the practice of yoga, yogi who has mastered yoga and who knows what to do, leaves the body when he or she wants. It's called Ichha Mrityu. So he just sits, locks up his body, stops all the physical functionings, breathes hard and gets out and goes away. Job over, bye-bye, finished. Only fortunate yogis can do that, great yogi. Not all. Anyway, whether you go that way or you are run over by a bus, you have to die, right? So who cares? He met Krishna's eyes and walked away. Krishna knew that Balarama, okay. Krishna turned his eyes on the fighting heroes. Soon their weapons were broken and they looked around for something to use. Well, I forgot to tell you in this, whether you run over by a bus, whether you leave your body at will, fact is, nothing is happening to you because you are not the body. That is some good news. It was a seashore, and so they found no tree which they could uproot. On the edge of the seashore, they saw a dense growth of grass. There was quite a lot of grass. They pulled out handfuls of the grass and started hitting each other with it. Now, people won't die if you hit with grass. Contrary to their expectations, the weapon proved to be very effective. Why? Each blade of grass was as powerful as Indra's Vajra. How come? Yeah, they were too drunk to consider how this could be possible. Krishna knew that each blade of grass had grown out of the powdered iron pestle which had been thrown long ago into the sea. What did Krishna do? He stood watching as they killed each other. He saw them all die. Satyaki, Kritavarman, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Gada, Samba, Sharana. He stood unmoved and unperturbed. Perhaps there was some emotion inside his mighty heart, but no one knew. In a matter of moments, the seashore was strewn with the bodies of the Yadavas. They were all dead, every one of them. He stood there, Krishna, and looked for a long moment. Was this not what he had planned? Was this not the scene which he had witnessed before returning to the board? Krishna walked past. He wanted to go away from there as quickly as possible. Only the waves of the sea and the blue sky and an occasional bird which would wheel across the sky saw the glorious form of Krishna during this last hour on his earth. Last hour. He shone like fire which burns without smoke, hiding its flames. His form, dark like a rain-bearing cloud, was dressed as usual with 2 pieces of his favorite yellow silk. The mole Srivatsa was there to beautify his broad chest, where rested the jewel Kaustuva. His face bore a smile, and the smile was made up of so many emotions. Relief at the thought that at last he was free, no more work to do. Pity for the world of men which would again drift into unrighteous ways the moment he left the earth. A sigh half sad and half affectionate for the dead men who had all been his kinsmen till a few moments ago. The impatient look which was on his face was gone now. His mind dwelt for a while on Uddhava, and then the smile came back and vanished. Krishna came to an Ashwatha tree, people tree, and under the shade of the tree he sat down. He assumed the Padmasana and sat in meditation. He had one more problem he had to solve. He had assumed the form of a human being, and it was essential that he should die like a human being. How could this be possible? He smiled to himself. He was the last of the Yadavas, and he knew what was going to happen to him. Now, if Krishna wanted, he could have sat like that in Padmasana and gone. But he says, I came in the form of a human body. I should go like a human body dies. So he sat there with the Vanamala flying in the breeze. His right hand showed the Chin Mudra, and the left was resting on his lap. His legs were crossed, and his left foot was resting on his right thigh. And so he sat for a long hour, deep in meditation. A hunter by name Jara was passing that way. For a second he paused and looked. From a distance he saw Krishna. He saw the yellow silk covering the limbs, and on the silk could be seen the left foot. The sole was red. Sole of the foot was red and tender like a lotus petal. And from that distance, the total impression the hunter got was that there was a deer standing there. He hurried with his bow and arrow. The deer was standing still. He had to use that to advantage. He fixed his arrow to his bow with dexterity and shot at the deer. The hunter heard a human voice cry out in pain. He hurried to the spot and found Krishna lying on the ground. He was holding his left foot, which had been hurt, in his two hands, and there was pain on his face. His brows were wet with sweat, and the hunter was filled with horror at what he had done. He fell at Krishna's feet and said, "What am I to do, my Lord? Unwittingly I have committed a crime which cannot be pardoned. Please tell me what I should do." Krishna said, "I am not angry with you. On the contrary, I am happy that you have done me a great favor, a great service. But now, you leave me. Let me alone. I assure you that you will go to heaven straight for this service and that you have rendered me. Do not worry. Go in peace." See the reaction? He didn't say, "Do you know who I am? You know what you have done? You idiot." No, nothing. Difference between a divine being and a human being. The hunter could not follow what the Lord had said. He only knew that he had been forgiven. With a heavy heart, he walked away from there. He had killed, he said to himself, a noble man. That was all he knew. Daruka, the charioteer of Krishna, was searching for his master for a long time. He knew that Krishna had left the spot where the fighting had been going on. He tried to find the path which Krishna had taken. He followed the footsteps, and later the scent of the tulsi, which was ever on the neck of Krishna, led Daruka to where Krishna was. Daruka saw Krishna with the arrow buried deep in his foot. Krishna had fallen on the ground, and it was evident that he was in pain. Daruka rushed to him and fell at his feet. "What happened, my lord? Who did this to my master?" Krishna said, "Daruka, there is no time to discuss all this. You must go now at once to Dwaraka. I am going to give you a very hard task. You must tell my parents about the death of the entire Yadava clan and about the decision of Balarama to abandon his human form through yoga. After that, see to it that no one stays in Dwaraka, because the sea will enter the city after I am gone. Tell Arjuna that he should take the women and children, old and the weak beings, to Indraprastha. As for you, set your mind on me constantly, and soon you will reach me." Krishna paused for a while. He winced with pain and he said, "Daruka, there is one task more that you have to do. Please do it for my sake. Just pull out this arrow which is hurting." Daruka was sobbing openly. With trembling hands, he pulled out the arrow. The Lord cried out in pain. Then he took the arrow in his hand. Daruka went round him 3 times and he prostrated before Krishna. "You must hurry, Daruka," said Krishna. "Life is going out of me fast." And Daruka left him like that. He didn't want anybody when he went. Best thing to do. When all the symptoms of death are coming, most wonderful thing to go somewhere where nobody is there. If they bury you, they will make a samadhi and worship you. And they will place words which you have never said in your mouth. He came out of the samadhi and told me this. You should go far away where nobody knows where you are. If you get to know in advance, best thing to do. Krishna did that actually. Sudaruka left him like that. When he looked back, Krishna sitting on the ground with an arrow in his hand and a smile of infinite peace on his face. That is his last. Krishna looked at the arrow for a long time. He remembered the incident of the curse of the rishis. The iron pestle had been powdered and thrown into the waters. He remembered the servants telling Balarama that one piece of iron could not be broken. Doesn't matter, said Balarama, throw that also into the sea. Krishna knew that the piece had been swallowed by a fish. It was in course of time caught, and while it was being cleaned, the iron piece which was found inside it was taken by the hunter, who fixed it on the arrow since it was perfect for that purpose. It was this same arrow which had been used. Krishna did not want the words of the rishis to be falsified. He was happy. That arrow was made from that piece which was swallowed and thrown out by the fish. He had ever held the wise Brahmins in great reverence. Even at that last moment of his life, he had made it possible for their words to come true. Brahma, accompanied by the celestial host, came to the spot where Krishna was. Actually, when you read the end of Krishna, I don't feel sad. It's very nice, happy ending actually. It's how you look at it that matters. Because Krishna, being the essence of Narayana, cannot die. What dies is a human form. And the human form dies in the best way possible without anybody knowing where he is. Anyway, Brahma, accompanied by the celestial host, all the Jingbang, came to the spot where Krishna was. So they were all there to take him back with them. Indra and his comrades, the Prajapatis, the Pitris, the Siddhas, the Gandharvas and the lesser gods, the rishis led by Maitreya. There was not space enough in the sky to accommodate the chariots. Flowers rained from the heavens. Krishna looked at all of them, closed his lotus eyes. Lotus eyes which were open, that's sad. Which were seeing everything seen and unseen, closed. He went into a yogic trance. In his own form, he reached his abode, Vaikuntha. And, in short, Dwaraka was submerged. Now Sukha had come almost to the end of his narration. End of Parikshit was also drawing near. 7 days given for Takshaka to come and bite him. The great Brahman, Sukadeva, then said, I have been talking to you all these days about the many avatars of the Lord. For those who have listened to these stories, there is no suffering. There will be no such feeling as the fear of death. Abandon, therefore, the fear about your impending death. This body was not there in the beginning. It happened in the middle. In the end, it won't be there. But the opposite is true of the Atman. There never was a time when the Atman was not. Nor will there be a time when it will cease to be. You are not going to be born fresh like the sprout from the seed. It applies only to the body which is perishable. Fire which is concealed in the wood is not part of the wood. Atman of yours is not prone to die. When one sleeps, he has many dreams that he had been beheaded, and he believes it's true until he wakes up. He then realizes that it was a dream. When a person sees his kinsman die, his father, mother, or someone near and dear, he knows that it is death, and he will also go the same way someday. But this, like the dream of the vacant man, is but an illusion. When you wake up in the Brahmi state, you will then realize that death which you have seen often enough is for the body made up of elements and not for the Atman which resides there. A pot is filled with air, and as long as it has the form of a pot, it has an entity and a name. The moment the pot breaks, the air inside and the air outside are the same. Even so, Atman, when it abandons the body which it inhabited, becomes one with Paramatman, the Brahman. Therefore, O king, contemplate on this illusory body and the Atman which is permanent. They are together now. You have been thinking on the Lord and only on the Lord for the past 7 days. Why? Because I have been saying stories. The curse of the Brahmin and the stink of the serpent Takshaka are not capable of killing the real you. You are the Brahman, the Atman. You cannot suffer from the fear of death. Parikshit said, should he? If you have anything else to ask of me, I will tell you, you can. I am rid of the fear of death, and the happiest days of my life have been these 7 days. When I listen to the stories of the Lord, I have been twice blessed since I have heard the stories of the Lord and from your lips. Second blessing. It is your infinite kindness towards men like me who are caught in the bondage of samsara, which has made you come to me and bless me with your grace. You have taught me about the Brahman, and after learning that lesson, I have been rid of the slight fear I had about being bitten by the dread snake, Takshaka. My ignorance is now destroyed. I feel happy and free. Please grant me permission to go. I am well prepared to shed this earthly body and to reach the feet of the Lord who has been in my heart all these days. I will withdraw my senses into myself and meditate on him. Parikshit then worshipped Brahman with all the honor due to him. He worshipped all the many rishis who had come there. Sukha, after blessing him, went from there attended by the other rishis. Parikshit was alone. He was alone. Would he be afraid? Would he sit and lament, oh, I am alone? Would he try to complicate his life by having company? He has heard the whole thing for 7 days. Huh? He sat on the Darbhasana and became absorbed in meditation. So intense was his concentration that he became like a block of wood without feelings or sensation. So he sat and fixed his mind on the form of Narayana. Takshaka took the form of a Brahmin and approached King Parikshit, who was lost to the world in his meditation. No one who surrounded the king recognized the Brahmin as Takshaka. When he came near, Takshaka took up his serpentine form and stung the king. Even as they were all looking, people saw the poison fuming like liquid fire, and it burnt the body of King Parikshit. In a matter of moments, the great shrine of the Kuru house was a heap of ashes. They didn't even have to cremate him. Savings. What does it matter? Gone. Only ashes. I'll stop now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Actually, they didn't leave much out. It was too winding. We skipped. But the essential parts of the Bhagavatam, I think we're done. No? Yes, sir. And what is the essential part of the Bhagavat? The Lord Narayana, in the form of your Antaryami Atman, sits in everybody's heart. You are not the body. And all human beings have a right to understand this truth and have a darshan of Narayana. And there is a beautiful mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Finished, actually. This is the essence. Huh? हाँ जी? भागवत में कहीं भी राधा का नाम मेंशन नहीं किया है, श्रीमद् भागवत में नहीं किया है। बाद में जीव गोस्वामी ने जब लिखा तो उन्होंने राधा का नाम लगाया, कहीं नहीं। But there is, the Bhagavad says that there was one favorite gopi among the gopikas who Krishna took into the woods and everybody was jealous. Jiva Goswami, that is Radha. Huh? Gopika Jivana Smaranam. All the gopis.